Hello everyone, Zayla here, shooting up the new video, and this will be part 3 or 4. I'm not even sure anymore. I'm not even taking count because I'm spacing out. And this will be part 3 or 4 of what if Deku was Captain America again? Not again, but you know what I mean. Previously, we last started off on where Steve was just de-thawed, and he was on Island, and he was confused. He ran around, saw the future, saw people as strange. I can't describe the people in this world. There's like biomorphic engineered people mixed with animals and plants, and I don't know. Steve was confused. He met Melissa, which kind of looked like, well, which was the great 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 granddaughter of Peggy Shield, and yeah, so he took a liking to her right away, and and here we are. Chapter 3, still well known. As Melissa was showing Steve around and showing him what the world has come to since he last saw in the mid 1940s. After showing Steve around, Steve was causing a was I don't know, he was just curious on so many people or creatures or whatever the hell they are. Melissa was explaining a lot of the population and inhabitants and how extraordinary abilities from their parents and as they did from theirs, and so on. And it all started with a glowing baby in Japan. Steve was confused and glad that America has made up with Japan since the last time he was there, and it wasn't to be friendly. As Melissa was done showing Steve around a lot of the residents on Island, there was a Captain America museum that was opening since it was on global news showing that All Might and scientists have found Steven Rogers, better known as Captain America, the first hero in the Arctic, yeah, and the Arctic has de-thawed and are opening a museum on Island where he is currently at. When Steve and Melissa were at the museum, Steve was surprised that he was still popular, even when almost a century has passed. As Steve and Melissa were walking around the museum, and Steve's face was everywhere, so of course Steve got glances from a lot of people. A lot of after a while, Steve saw a lot of his old stuff. Like, come on, it, it, oh, damn it. Huh. In my life. And forget it. Steve saw, as they were walking the museum, after a while, Steve saw a lot of his old stuff. Well, replicas of his old stuff. And, not including the real thing. But but it gave Steve memories of all the times he fought with these old supplies that he once owned. Yeah, finally, god damn it. Sorry. Especially when Steve's second favorite thing he fought with was with his motorcycle. As Steve was looking at it, Melissa walked up to Steve and told him that back in America, the army has a warehouse of Steve's real stuff, like his actual bike, instead of identical copies, like his uniform, all of his awards, and all kinds of stuff. Steve was happy since at least he had some stuff in the past with him. As the two were walking, Steve found a memorial of with not just him but with his squad, his team, the Howling Commandos. As Steve was looking uh, at this, he felt a tug. As Steve was looking at this picture or this post, not whatever this is, Steve felt a tug on his leg, and as he turned, the child was there asking if that's him. Steve smiled and said, "Yeah, a long time ago." After a while, a lot of people walked up to him asking for autographs, pictures, and comments about what he thinks of the future. Steve was used to all the autographs and pictures since his time in the show business, since it, but since this was the future and they had big cameras and a bunch of other stuff, so Steve was, well, his eyes were all blinking, flashing out, so he started to get blind. As Melissa politely asked to stop the reporters, and they asked Steve one last question: "Is Captain America dating David Shield's daughter?" As that, as I don't know, since I don't know, that got Steve like with a question hitting him like really. He's like, "Whoa, come on, just settle down. Like I gotta go." And that got Melissa blushing a little since no one has ever asked her that question. And yeah, yeah. Oh boy, I almost sneezed. As they said that Steve got memories about all the good times uh, he had, and his last memories of saying goodbye and being frozen in time. That's when silently left. That's when Steve silently left as Melissa followed to make sure that Steve was feeling better, since all the reporters asked if they were dating, but Steve didn't feel bad about that, but he just got memories of all the times he was with Peggy Shield, and that made him real feel bad since that was a long time ago for him. Yeah. As uh, as Melissa and Steve were walking, and Melissa tried to make him feel a bit better, and both talking about, I don't know, like what they really thought about the whole thing. I don't know. As Melissa tried making Steve feel better and all get all that thoughts about all that stuff, that's when, I don't know, Steve, as Melissa was trying to comfort Steve, that's when he got another memory. Because that's the same thing that Peggy did as when Bucky died. So he did the same thing as he did back then, when he just smiled and hugged her. But it was Melissa, not Peggy, so he didn't like kiss her. So he's like, "Whoa, dude, I don't roll that way, you know." Oh, that's your great great granddaughter, all right. All right. Chapter 4: Teacher or Student. After Steve got a whole tour of the whole island, which took forever since it was a whole big island. And when that was done, the two went back to the building, and Steve just remembered as soon as they were back that he didn't have his shield with him. Well, when he broke up, not broke up, or like when he woke up, he started to panic. So yeah, as Steve was rem, I don't know. So Steve like woke up. He didn't have a shield with him, so he was like panicking. He's like, "Oh shoot, man, where's my unbreakable shield that was irreplaceable? I gotta go." But that's when Melissa reminded him that it was in a lab. So, well, in her lab. So it was okay. As Steve was rummaging in Melissa's lab trying to find the shield, Melissa told him that she had it in the, I don't know, in the little area of hers where she can study it. Steve didn't like people taking things without the owner's permission, but so Melissa felt bad but apologized and didn't want to trouble him. Steve was upset, but it was okay with him since it was just her and not some other scientist like, "Oh man, I want to keep this." As Steve and Melissa went to go to find Steve's unbreakable shield, hopefully that was still in her lab, before Steve can be relieved. As they were there, it was still there, as was Steve's light blue suit and helmet. Well, this thing that he was wearing. Melissa wanted to patch it up for Steve can someday wear it again, and wanted to make another design of the suit in a more modern way. As Steve was inspired by well, not inspired, but impressed by the design and that Melissa made, a knock was heard on the door, and All Might and David walked in, that they needed to talk to Mr. Rogers in private. As Melissa walked out, and All Might gave Steve some papers. "What's this?" As Steve looked at the Jolly Blue Giant. As All Might explained, "Well, Rogers, these are papers to come to our school back in Japan. And you can be a student, or even a teacher, since the board approved of you being a teacher, since you're technically at the age and have a lot of experience. But if you do join us, you can be the history teacher, since, well, obvious reasons. And maybe even combat." As Steve was shocked that he was offered to go back to school as a student, or even such as a teacher. Steve gave the papers back to All Might. "Let me think about it. Come get me in the morning, and I'll have your answer." As All Might nodded, and David gave a room key and gave Steve a room key that was in the building. As can I say? As it was night and it started to rain. As Steve went into his room, it was a special room for Steve, so they made it look like it was from the 1940s, so that's why it looked like this instead of all futuristic and stuff. So Steve could feel a little bit more comfortable. But he still didn't feel right about it. Steve just looked out into the sky, wondering if this was all a dream or even real. As he was rubbing his eyes, he went to a desk, and his little notebook that Steve still had on him before he was frozen. And it was still good, so Steve still wrote in it. The last time he wrote was in 1945, so Steve had a lot to write about. Now that he might be a teacher and needs to get used to doing certain things, like, I don't know, so yeah. Well, that's all I got for now. It's yeah, I don't know. So Steve is confused about being a teacher and is very uncertain of what he's going to do, so he's really not sure if he should go back to being the almighty Captain America, since he also learned that heroes are everywhere and so are villains, so he's a bit confused. And if he does go back to being a hero, he needs a lot to think about. So what's our 17-year-old or 100 and some year old gonna do? That's for me to decide. Not really, actually. You know what? No. This is something that I want you guys to decide, actually. If Steve should go being a student with all the others, or being a teacher, teaching them combat, history, or even going out at night being a vigilante, like how he was in the comics. He's like, you know what? I'm sick of America. I'm doing something else. Well, that's all I got for now for this episode, and I hope you liked it. And next episode will be the continuation of Sabretooth, so get ready for that. Ow, I just popped my leg. Okay. Well, that's all I got for now. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe, and share with your friends, and have a great day, or other nights.